Hello, my name is Laura and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about audiobooks you can listen to. I am personally a huge fan of the audiobook. I owe the fact that I was able to read 190 books last year to audiobooks, absolutely. They really just make it so you can be reading while you're doing what you'd be doing in everyday life. While I'm doing dishes, folding laundry, walking, doing errands. I mean, you can really fly through some books. But if you just really wake up one day saying, I want to finish an entire book today, these are some that I definitely recommend. They're a little bit shorter, they tend to be fast-paced, and this is my list of recommendations. My first recommendation is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is set in Nigeria about two sisters, one of whom is a serial killer who is always calling her sister to come clean up her mess. I read this one a long time ago, and it was so fun and funny and just like a really cute story. It doesn't sound like it would be cute, but it was like just, I loved it. The sister that is the serial killer is only killing men that she's dating. And the moral of the story, more or less, without spoiling anything, is just like, how far do we need to go for the people we love? Like, where is the line? You know, this book is only 4 hours and 15 minutes, so you can absolutely fly through it. And if you are like me, I tend to usually listen on 1.5 speed, so even faster. Next is one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Most people have heard of this one already, but it is written in an interview style format, so it's basically these interviews with former rock stars in this band. And it's totally fictional, so don't get confused, because it confused my best friend and we had a whole argument about, is Daisy Jones and the Six a real band? But nevertheless, it is a full cast of narrators. They're all incredible, and it really brings something else to the story. It really, more than any book I've ever read on audio, is just like a podcast. It's just like a podcast. You're listening to the history of this band from the people that lived it. It's also about to be a mini-series on Amazon Prime Video, so I, for one, am very excited, and I actually might go back and listen to the audiobook again before it premieres. Daisy Jones and the Six audiobook is 9 hours and 4 minutes. The next book I would recommend listening to, and you can get done real quick, is You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacey by Amber Ruffin and Lacey Lamar. This is a book of stories that are all about the racism that Lacey Lamar went through. Amber Ruffin is a comedian. She has been on Seth Meyers, and I believe she now has her own show on some streaming service. So that's pretty cool. She's hilarious and just adorable. And her sister lives in Nebraska. They both grew up there, but now Amber lives in New York City. And the stories of things that have happened to Lacey, just super racist things. And it's not all in Nebraska, I mean, but it is definitely, I think, harder, you know, to be a black woman there. And as a white lady, I mean, my mind was blown. These things that, I mean, I absolutely believe that these happened, but I still, like, just, it blows my mind. This definitely reads like a podcast because it's these two sisters playing off of each other, really. And I mean, the physical book is the same, but if you gotta hear them speak this stuff, because in their own words, it's just so much better. This is just a must read. And this audiobook is only 5 hours and 21 minutes long. The next one is actually the book I finished most recently, and that is We Spread by Ian Reid. This is a sort of a horror fiction, but not super horror in the way that you might normally think of it. It is basically about a woman who is living on her own. She's very elderly. She's not that old, but I want to say she's like in her mid to late 70s. So I mean, she's got some years left in her, but she's starting to kind of lose her wits about some things, and she lives by herself. Her partner of like her whole adult life has passed away. They were both artists, and she falls off of a chair and hits her head. And her landlord, who is like sort of her friend, basically is like, you need to go live in a home, like a retirement assisted living facility, because you clearly can't take care of yourself because you would have died if I wasn't there. And So she kind of ends up going to this assisted living home against her will, and everyone keeps telling her, oh, your partner, he set this up for you, he's made all the arrangements, everything's paid for, you're gonna love it. And a bunch of creepy stuff starts to happen, and she starts to question if she is losing her mind a little bit, because the people that work there are like telling her things that she said, but she's like, there's no way I said that. I don't remember that at all. And it really makes you think, like, what's happening? Who's telling the truth? So I just absolutely thought it was brilliant, and it was a lot more tender than I think I would have imagined going in. I mean, this is Ian Reid. He has written I'm Thinking of Ending Things and Foe, so not like horror with a sweet side, but this one definitely was. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely would recommend it. And We Spread is 5 hours and 57 minutes. Next is One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. I got this book from Kindle Unlimited. They had the audio, and I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit ridiculous. It's about these rich ladies in Texas, I think. No. It doesn't matter. These rich ladies, and they all go to the same hair salon where they like get these spa appointments, and it's kind of told from several points of view, but one of them is like their stylist that runs the hair salon, and like she kind of is an outside perspective of these women who are just getting into these petty fights and drama, and then what do you know, one of them dies, hence the title. Is this classically beautiful literature? No, not at all. Did I have a blast reading it? Well, I absolutely did. I loved this audiobook. It's got several different narrators, so I definitely would recommend it. It is 9 hours and 21 minutes long. Next is a book that was one of my all-time favorites and was in my top books of 2022, and that is Yellow Wife by Sadeka Johnson. I sort of team read this, meaning I read it physically and I also read the audio. And that sounds weird, but I listened to the audio. Yes, that does make sense. And it is just a beautiful story. I've talked about it a lot already, but it's about a woman who was born into slavery, but her father is the slave owner, and she is kind of white passing-ish. So she gets a little bit of special treatment, but when her mother, who was the medicine person for this plantation, dies, she is basically sold back into slavery, and then it goes from there. It's incredible, it's beautiful, it's heartbreaking, and I just absolutely loved it. And this author just had a new book come out this month, The House of Eve, and I cannot wait to read it. I just got it in the mail today, and I am so excited to read that. And Yellow Wife is 9 hours and 31 minutes on audio. Next is another book I know I've already talked about, and that is Now Is Not the Time to Panic by Kevin Wilson. This is about a sort of satanic panic sort of situation in the late 90s. These two kids in high school who are just kind of like bored with life, but they both want to create art, end up causing a stir when a flyer they put up with some of their artwork and this passage of writing that kind of doesn't make sense all over their city, and then people like really start to get into it. Because they're like, what does this mean? What is it? And they just kind of run with it, and it becomes like a whole thing. And then years later, someone has found out that they're the ones that started it because it was a big old secret, and like how they deal with that and how it all kind of unfolded back in the days that they came up with it. This was so good. I was so like enthralled in the story, in the plot. I just couldn't stop reading it. And the audiobook narrator is Jennifer Goodwin, who is an incredibly talented actress, and I loved listening to her voice in this book. And this is only 6 hours and 12 minutes, so definitely one you can read in a day. The next one is near and dear to my heart, and that is Fly Girl by Anne Hood. This is a memoir about her experience as a TWA flight attendant in the 70s and 80s, I believe. I thought this was just amazing, and for as much as aviation and being a flight attendant has changed since then, there's so much that's still the same that I'm just like, I just found myself being like, yes, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. So this was just a really personal one for me that I really loved. It was so cool to hear all about the way things were back when she first started, because, you know, people that I work with are of all different seniorities, and so I've only been with my airline for 4 years, but there's people that have been there for 40, and sometimes we work together, and so it's really neat to hear stories from how things were back then, and this was just a really great memoir. Additionally, about how she kind of moved on from flying, because it's definitely something that gets in your bones, and it's hard to go back to just being a normal person. It's a complete lifestyle. It's not just a career. So I really enjoyed this, and she reads it, so that's really neat too. Fly Girl is 8 hours and 11 minutes long. My next recommendation is Hunger by Roxane Gay. This is one that I read last year. I did get the physical copy, but then I ended up listening to the audiobook because she reads it, and I really love listening to memoirs when they're read by the author. So this is basically about Roxane Gay's struggle with her body throughout her life. She is a fat woman, and she's Black, and just how kind of those have intersected, and how her life has been as opposed to people that are white and thin. It was a book I think most people will be able to find something they can identify with. I really did, and I really just enjoyed hearing her story. It was just fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it. And Hunger is 5 hours and 57 minutes long. The next one is Any Man by Amber Tamblyn. I found out about this book from Elizabeth at Reading Riley, whose video you should definitely check out based on this. I will link it above. But it was so cool. So this is a huge cast as well. It's basically about a female rapist and murderer who is targeting men, and how different things are when the men are the victims. A basic synopsis. It was such a unique and interesting book. I can't believe that I hadn't heard of it, because it's not new. It's not a new book. It was just so cool and original. I thought it was great, and definitely one of those things that makes you think. It is very disturbing. There's some pretty graphic scenes, so proceed with caution, but definitely one I would recommend. Any Man is only 4 hours and 33 minutes. Definitely a book you can just fly through. And my final recommendation on this list is Counterfeit by Kirsten Chen. This was a Reese's Book Club pick, and I read it so quickly. I did listen to the audio. I did also get a physical copy because that's how much I loved it. This is about a woman who's Chinese. She's from China, and she seems to have it all together. A beautiful son, a surgeon for her husband. She's a lawyer, but she's not practicing, I don't think. But behind the scenes, everything's falling apart. She doesn't have as much money as she acts like she does. Her son is having behavioral problems, and her marriage is basically crumbling. So she ends up being reached out to by her college roommate, who runs a counterfeit bag ring. And it all kind of goes back to a lot of like things being made in China and then importing them to the US and like passing them off. And it is so good. I love a book about a scam, and this one is beautiful. And the ending is super shocking. There's a big twist in the middle, and it was just so cool. I loved this, and I think you will too. Counterfeit is 7 hours and 20 minutes long. So those are my top 11 audiobooks that you can listen to in a day. All of them are under 10 hours, and if you tend to listen on a little bit higher speed, even shorter. So I would love it if you would give this thumbs up if you liked this video. I would love it if you would subscribe if you want to see more from me, and leave me a comment down below of your favorite audiobook ever. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.